I know the consequences. I know where this is headed. And it is not a pretty picture.
America can't be great if it's broke. And we're broke.
There's a simple solution to the federal debt. You pay for it.
I'll tell you right now, there's no easy answers to these solutions. It's going to take sacrifice.
We have had the greatest economic downturn since the Great Depression.
Biggest lesson from the last recession is don't have a financial crisis.
By far the biggest cause is health care.
Baby boomers are retiring as the largest senior generation America ever produced. We're going to be living longer after 65 than any of our predecessors, and we're already bigger.
Each side wants to take one portion, but say it has to carry 100% of the solution. That'll never work.
We are deep, deep, deep in the hole, headed down deeper, and it threatens the America we've known. Some people understandably say, boy, this is sort of dry subject, dollars, cents, debt. What's it mean to me? If I read the mathematics right, it means everything.
When you focus on reality, it's a pretty harsh lesson for America. Al and I came to the opinion that we face the most predictable economic crisis in history, that this fiscal path we're on is simply not sustainable. And if you were to try to think of an analogy, these deficits of over $1 trillion a year they're like a cancer, and they truly will destroy the country from within.
Why should people care? Because if the debt keeps going up, more and more of their federal tax dollars will be used to pay interest on the debt rather than to invest in our future through education and technology. Secondly, money will be more expensive for people, so their interest rates on their homes, their small business loans, cars, sending kids to college, all that will go up. So our economic growth rate will go down long term.
Three things have happened. Number one, well over $3 trillion of tax cuts not paid for. We have had 2 wars not paid for, and the economic downturn, which led us to the lowest revenue in 60 years as a share of our economy, and the highest expenditures in 60 years as a share of our national income.
Politicians know that their constituents are suffering. What does the politician do? Let's get people into housing. Housing gives them a stake in the future. It's an asset. You can borrow against it, and you can spend. But because it's consumption which is based on an underlying asset which has grown in value, you don't necessarily feel that you're consuming your way into debt. You're consuming against home equity. Over the 1990s and the early 2000s, the increase in house prices was very beneficial to the average American in the sense that it allowed greater consumption. All this is fine so long as it lasts.
The explosion of federal debt in the last 3 or 4 years has basically only one explanation: the financial crash and the deep recession that followed.
The investment bankers focus their attention on the biggest single asset that most middle-class people have, which is their homes.
Wall Street created financial instruments that had risks that were truly stunning.
They were borrowing on nothing for nothing on top of nothing.
Traders started betting on the fate of those new financial instruments. And then it all crashed.
You know, it appears there are always people who are so self-centered, they really don't give a flip what happens to all the rest of us.
There is lots of blame to go around. The mortgage originators who were shoveling out mortgages to people who were probably not going to be able to pay them. The bankers who were buying those mortgages and selling them around the world, and the regulators who should have been paying attention to this.
Look, they brought us to the brink. I was in the room when the former Secretary of the Treasury in the Bush administration and the Chairman of the Federal Reserve came to the leaders of Congress and told us they were taking over AIG the next morning, and if they did not, there'd be a financial collapse within days.
They walked into this room at 9 o'clock at night, and they said that within 72 hours, the entire banking system of the United States, and therefore the world, will shut down. We were on the verge of the most cataclysmic fiscal event in our history. And what Secretary Paulson said was, I need the authority to make it clear that as Treasury Secretary, I can step up and protect these banks from failing so that they can do business with each other. Major companies in this country that are very well known, that are totally solvent, that are very strong financially, could not move money around. I mean, they literally could not open their stores the next day because they could not move money. Everybody just sort of sat there thinking, I'm sure the way I was thinking, you know, this is incredible.
This was an especially deep hole because the problem was in housing finance. Everybody has a house, and the housing crash has affected our whole economy deeply, and we're not out of it yet.
I've been doing this for 40 years. I think I've seen 300 debt commissions during that time, usually completely ignored.
A bipartisan group can sit down together and come up with solutions that nobody likes, because everything you do to reduce a deficit is unpleasant. I mean, you've either got to cut one kind of spending or another kind of spending or raise taxes. Those are the only options you have, and nobody wants to do any of those things.
Al says we've been very successful. We've achieved the pinnacle of our life. We pissed off everybody in America.
It took us 4 months to establish trust in our commission when we started. And the theme coming out of the Democrats was, who's the biggest spending president in the history of the United States before this man? Answer, George W. Bush. Never vetoed a single spending bill in 6.5 years till it came to stem cell research. So after that simmered down, the other side said, but this guy, Obama, is 4 times worse than Bush with the stimulus and TARP and this and that. Finally, Ursula and I said, well, keep scrapping and we'll just do a 2-member report, just the 2 of us.
I was on the commission. I voted for it, even though it was the president's commission, and 5 of his 6 people voted for it. The president walked away from it. If they were to just legislate the Simpson-Bowles language, then I think the recovery we would see would be extraordinary.
About 1/4 of what we did was revenue, and 3/4 was in the form of spending cuts. And the sum total of it yielded $4 trillion in deficit reduction It's the minimum amount we need to reduce the deficit in order to stabilize the debt and get it on a downward path as a percent of GDP.
There's been a lot of criticism of the Obama administration for not more fully embracing the Bowles-Simpson Commission. The first thing you have to realize is the report had a significant amount of revenue contained in it and therefore had almost no chance of passing the House of Representatives, regardless of whether the administration embraced it or not. So it's almost just an optics discussion of what plays better in terms of how you're presenting yourself if you embrace it or not. And that's a different discussion than it was actually going to happen if the White House embraced it.
I think they were sort of shocked. You know, I mean, I think they sort of appointed this commission, hoped that the issue would go away, and they just didn't want to risk the political capital of supporting their own commission's report.